days a week. Oh, that's good. I was wondering if I needed to record this session or not, but yay, whoever pressed record, thank you.
You're welcome.
I think there's still a lot of use for the notebooks, especially if the kids do write on paper and then upload images to the notebooks. The more PD that I take part in right now and the sessions that I see, I'm always looking at it through the frame of a notebook, just be in terms of an organizational thing, and definitely formative assessment, which is what, of course, the focus of this is. But yeah, all right. It's 11 and I value your time and I thank you so much for being here. This is using digital interactive notebooks as a formative assessment tool. And I'm going to minimize everybody so I can see my screen. And yeah, so welcome. Oops, can't do that. So my name is Sarah English. I'm starting my 23rd year of teaching, which is crazy. I teach Regents, which is like general chemistry and AP chemistry at Sweet Homes High School, which is in like a first ring suburb of Buffalo, New York. So this is my first time presenting at your conference and I've really enjoyed it so far. So I really have to thank Kristen for inviting me along to do this. So very thankful to be here. In our high school, we have roughly 1,000 kids. We are shrinking a little bit, but it always wavers from kids coming in from the city to our school. We have a very transient population. We are 100% free and reduced lunch at our school. We have quite a high homeless, students who are homeless or just really socioeconomically disadvantaged. And that definitely is challenging when it comes to the school. One thing to realize about my school before we start talking about the notebooks is infrastructure, because a lot of the decisions that you make about, is notebooking, digital notebooking, something that I want to do, is you have to take a really deep look at your technology profile. So Sweet Home was very innovative, which was crazy at the time. We are a one-to-one iPad school, 5th through 12th grade. And what that means is that our 5th graders and our 12th graders all have their own iPad and they take it home every day and they bring it back to school every day. So that's a big deal. And we do send out hubs to different communities and to schools to make sure the kids do have internet. It amped up during the pandemic, of course, but when I look back at what we experienced over the last year and a half, if any school was ready for this pandemic, it was Sweet Home. Like we were like, and that's what we just call, Wednesday. Our learning management is Schoology, which is different than most schools. My brother also teaches chemistry and AP chemistry. He's my biggest collaborator and he uses Google Classroom and Chromebooks. But we develop and create these notebooks together. So even though I'm going to be talking about things in terms of Schoology and using iPads, know that these exact same notebooks, with slight modifications, of course, are being used actively in a Google Classroom Chromebook situation. We do have an annotation tool on our iPads called Notability, which is amazing. And obviously I know that it's Cami for for Chromebooks. And we are a G Suite for Education School, which means that we have access to a lot of different things. So as I'm going through this, if you have questions about anything, please feel free to interrupt me because I'm going to be putting a lot out there and I want to make sure that I answer your questions as we're going through, because I know in this session, our time is limited. Okay. So why would you even remotely consider jumping on the digital interactive notebook train now? Because, we're thinking about going back to the classroom. I've seen a lot of posts on Facebook and different social media and Twitter. They're like, I don't want to use technology at all. I want my students back to paper and pencil and writing. But when I look to the future, but also looking at what we've done in the past, schools more than ever, now not everybody, of course, really, again, it depends on your situation, but a lot of schools now have really upped their infrastructure, their technology profile, where it will support digital learning. And students have all these amazing skills that they've learned from the pandemic, utilizing class. So the purpose that I see of using a digital interactive notebook is to capture student understanding, which is huge, and a formative assessment piece, through formative assessment tasks in one location being key, in a fluid school environment. And I want to stress fluid because I think I'm going back 5 days a week, but that could change in an instant. And we're already seeing that with the COVID variant D, you know, that it's interesting. And then I also approaching it through storylines or unit of study while providing lots and lots of support. That's also another really key aspect. It's formative assessment, but at the same time, I have a lot of support networks placed into my notebooks, especially when you're using things like Chem Matters or PhET simulations, AACT resources, YouTube resources, resources from your colleagues. I use a lot of stuff from AP Teach, your personal pre-COVID resources that you really loved and would like to bring back, and then any other social media resources that you might have gotten your hands on. And now some of you also, and I started out this way as well, it's like, okay, we're going back 5 days a week, hopefully. And we did start with physical notebooks. So if you were comfortable with physical notebooks in the past, why would you consider doing digital notebooks? Well, we liked our physical notebooks, but there was a high volume of paper used. There was a ton of copying on my part. If you had a student that was like super focused and really well organized and neat, they produced beautiful artifacts of work to really demonstrate their understanding. But everybody else, especially if you had students that were absent, yeah, it was ugly, like super ugly. There's a lot of prep on the teacher end as well as classroom time. If you're thinking about like, how many glue sticks did I go through? How many times did I have kids looking in their toolbox that I'd share with them and say, oh, Dr. English, I'm missing this, this, and this, or this is gone. So there was just a lot of time that was focused on the notebooking, and that really became the message and not on the content. And what I was literally looking at now, especially as I'm developing future notebooks, which I am, is looking at process and skills and other aspects and not just notebooking itself. So the benefits of digital interactive notebooks, and this is commenting on what I've seen over the last year, a digital interactive notebook is going to allow you to create an organized notebook for every student. And I do push out notebooks in completion. I do have colleagues that push out partial notebooks, and they have a very specific way that they do that. And I can talk to that later on. I have not used slip and slide, even though I definitely know slip and slide works. We had a trial of it, and then my tech person just never bought it for us. But I know slip and slide works, which is an extension. There's less classroom spent on organizing the notebooks because it's all there. You can embed digital links, resources, activities, videos, Giphies. Giphies are a huge favorite of mine. You can really think, and I was thinking about this, especially as I was watching Karen Yee's presentation. You really think about student thinking and how it connects with ideas and concepts. It supports tier 2 and tier 3 vocabulary, making real world connections. So it gives kids time to think and read. And most importantly to me, it creates this amazing record of new ideas, activities, reflections, formative assessments, and most importantly, growth. You can really see growth over time in a notebook. So I started out with the idea of notebooking last summer. I really wanted to bring notebooking into my classroom. I knew this was time, but I really struggled hard because I couldn't visualize what it was going to look like. And I am a Keynote snob. Like in the Mac world, I don't use PowerPoint. I use Keynote, and I love Keynote. So I wasn't really familiar with Google Slides. And then there was a lack of free high school chemistry ready notebooks. Like I wanted to just look at a notebook and what people had done, but they wanted me to pay on Teacher Pay Teacher, and I didn't want to pay. Or if I did get a free notebook, I was like, oh, that's interesting, but it's like using somebody else's chemistry notes. People put out chemistry notes all the time, but you can't really use those chemistry notes because they're not yours. It's sort of in that aspect. I needed a serious crash course in developing digital notebooks. And that's when I discovered my favorite human in the world. And that was Jessica Wilding. She's a goddess. She put out two videos, and she switched over to a different YouTube channel, which was sad, but her videos are still there. So if you're thinking about going on this path. And I'm creating my own YouTube channel that deals with chemistry, digital interactive notebooks, but it's process. But if you're like, oh no, I want to start today. Oh yeah, totally would go with this getting started with digital interactive notebooks. In one 30-minute session, I pretty much learned everything that I needed to know to at least start it. And then there's 24 different types of activities for digital interactive notebooks. Brilliant. A lot of it was more middle school oriented, but I could take any of those ideas and transform them into what I wanted to see in my notebooks. Then I also went to other Facebook groups. There is a digital interactive notebooks and binders Facebook groups, and it says 23,700 members. Yeah, that number's off the chart now. I think they're up to like at least 40. So there's a lot of people out there either sharing the notebooks that they have or asking questions. It was a hugely supportive group, but it's cross content, like it's everybody. Then turns out that there's a science digital interactive notebooks group on Facebook. And those were really great as well. Especially a lot of living environment, well, a lot of biology, a lot of earth science, middle school level stuff, a lot of elementary, which was great to see. But the chemistry was still like seriously lacking. There was a couple of people that shared stuff and ideas, but or it was like single shot slide decks, but not really what I wanted to see, which was like a unit worth of study or a storyline. I also use the Schoology Educator community a lot because when you're thinking about pushing out your notebooks, no matter what learning management system you use, you have to think about, okay, I have this beautiful Google slide deck or OneNote or something along that line. How do I push that out to my students? How do I give them feedback? How do I grade this thing? Like there's a lot of different aspects that you need to think about once you have that notebook built. And the final group that I looked at in order for inspiration, especially inspiration, was the modeling introduction instruction in chemistry, which is moderated by Anthony Tadaldi. If you don't follow Anthony, he's really involved in AP Teach, but if you don't follow Anthony on in Facebook, especially in the, I mean, he's all over the place, but he's most prominently in the AP Chemistry Teachers group. Brilliant. Guy has great ideas. So those were 4 major groups that I looked at when I was thinking about how to construct it, problems that I might have, and inspiration. So we need to visualize the process, right? So the focus here is on embedded formative assessment tasks. But when you really think about notebooks, every slide is some type of formative assessment, whether it's looking at what did the students know, so a little bit of pre-assessment, assessments at the very end to sort of evaluate what they've learned over time. You're thinking that every slide is basically potentially a formative assessment piece. Now, I'm not going into on how to build these notebooks because that would take hours. That's really a PD session in itself. But if you watch Jessica Wilding's video and then you think to yourself, okay, how do I want to build this? One way of thinking about how to build it while also bringing in the idea of like 5E model, but at the same time, NGSS storyline creation. And in New York State, it's NISLIS. So I've been trying to think more when appropriate, because not every notebook is going to be 5E, not by a long shot. And I'm going to show you an example of one that is most definitely not. But I try to think now of how do I sort of integrate that 5E model, knowing that my E's could potentially be all over the place. So I try to start out with an initial phenomenon, some type of image, a video, maybe a reading. A lot of it is video. If we're back in school this year, because remember, this was all done in COVID. If we're back in school this year, that'll be a lot more hands-on experiences that are real world. So it's that whole part of starting the notebook with some type of engaging piece. And then there's the explorer aspect of it, right? Definitely using question formulation technique. Did not use that much at all last year, really ever, because I wasn't allowed to get my kids near each other. I'm a huge fan of QFT. So there's going to be whole sections of the notebook that's going to really focus on initial questions that the students have, then that collaborative learning space, which I'll have can show you later on in the presentation. So consensus model, QFTs, whether they're Jamboards or hand-drawn, phenomena-centered exploratory investigations, definitely using those. With the explain, this is of course your reinforcement experiences based on learning new content, a little bit of formative assessment, just hitting some like points as you go through. The elaborate, now we're looking back on our initial models that we created and we're adding to them and we're expanding our thinking about how why something is the way it is. And then engaging in an analogous phenomena. And then finally, the evaluate piece is could be a final model and a reflection. Like I've had my initial model, I'm going back to my initial model. I've annotated a whole bunch, I've done gallery walks, I've looked at other people's models. Now I'm here at the end of the storyline and I can really explain to you what's happening. That's going to explain the phenomena, go into more depth in my modeling, stuff like that. And then other embedded assessment tools. Do you have a Quizlet you want them to look at? A quizzes, something like that. But the most important thing is that it's all in-house. So that's the general format now that I'm trying to look at when I'm organizing my notebooks. So what does that look like? I use the notebooks as a portfolio, obviously, for student growth. So this is all snapshots of student understanding. When you're thinking about doing the notebooks, don't put big major labs in there. Don't put full POGLs. Don't do any of that. It's fine to take like a data section of a lab, have the students put it into a notebook and reflect on it, or some type of takeaway from a POGL, some end result that they had that they can reflect on. But I usually have the notebooks as a separate grade to itself, but I don't grade anything like no labs inside of notebooks. I learned the hard way on that, and yeah, not going to do that again. And if you get really into it and you know that you're going to try to do like a whole storyline or a whole unit, these notebook decks can become very big, very, very quickly, like really fast. There's some units that I had to like break apart into smaller sections, like my chemical bonding unit. There's like a covalent bonding notebook and an ionic bonding notebook to really track students' understanding over time. And then how you map out your notebook depends on your students, your comfort level, and of course, your school technology profile. I forgot to hit that. Oh, well, that's all right. Okay. So if you were starting out on a notebook, what might the beginning look like? This is your engage stage, right? You've got some type of initial phenomena that you're having your students look at and reflect upon. So it could be a static image, it could be a GIF, it could be a video of a real world experience. It could be your kids working in pairs on some type of activity in class that you're sort of getting their, capturing their understanding of, and they're doing some type of hands-on activity and you take a little video of them doing it, or they take a video of each other doing it, they put that into the notebook, or even a picture of what they're doing. It could be an article, or it could be an in-person demo of you. And that's a big aspect of it, is that especially during COVID, I might have students in class watching me do a demo in class and making comments on it. But at the same time, I made a video of myself doing that demo prior. So my kids at home, because we were hybrid, could also just participate in the notebook and see what I was doing. And I'm going to keep that aspect of it, especially if a student's absent, which we have an extremely high absentee rate in our school. So a lot of these are backup experiences of the phenomena captured in the notebook, like I said, who are absent, or really they're going on to do an initial model and they need to see the experience again. So capturing that engage part, it's really nice. So here's an example of one of the first pages in my Intermolecular Forces, Solids and Liquids notebook. So on the left, you see a couple of Giphies that the kids are looking at, and they do one of Paul Anderson's, I see, I think, I wonder, and they're doing that on their own. So this is your silent, sustained writing component where they're thinking about their thinking. And then we'd share those out in class. This year, I'll have the kids actually talk to each other more, like in a group, talking about what they wrote there. If you look over on the right-hand side, you can see that the kids had the GIFs in their notebooks, but they also had static images at their desks that they're looking at. And that's some students' initial thoughts. Okay, so now I'm gauging, well, what do they know? What's their background here? What are they coming into this particular topic knowing, so I can gauge where we're going? So that's an example out of a student's notebook. And then we continue to engage and explore in the phenomena, right? We're going to sort of meld the line between these two E's. And that's when we bring in, especially this year, the question formulation technique. Take some time to write some initial questions, get together in a group of 3 and do a consensus model, whether it's on a whiteboard, like you see over on the right, if I can get them close enough to each other, or on a sheet of poster paper. What I had the kids do last year was connect them to a Jamboard where they would put their questions in, and then we'd sort them out by cross-cutting concepts. So we also did student hands-on activities, and in this particular phase in the notebook, like test predictions and claims, plan and conduct investigations, but super tiny ones if it was in the notebook. If it was a bigger plan and conduct an investigation, like that I was going to basically give as a separate lab that I was going to take a grade on, I would have them take a screenshot of their results, right? A data table, a graph, a model, and then I would have them do a reflected piece at the bottom or a teacher lab demo. So that's like later on in the notebook. So the big thing here when you're designing your notebooks is you need to determine if an experience could be captured in the notebook or be a standalone item, because sometimes you do these wonderful, amazing activities and other things, and you're realizing it's going to take up like 10 slides and it might be too much. So this was an example of an explore activity that we did with the same intermolecular forces, solids and liquids notebook. So they did this water on a penny demo, which is, a hands-on experience, which is kids see a lot. They had a penny, they had some water, they were using the dropper bottle to put the water on the penny. They had you could see in the upper right-hand corner, they had some static images that they were looking at. Over on the left is what they would have seen in the notebook. So they had some directions, they had some guides. They would go up to these icons right here. We were blue and gold. So because Jamboard limits you to 20 slides and I had classes of like 24 split in half. So I'd say, okay, this is my blue team, this is my gold team. So they'd be transported to a Jamboard. And then so you can see over on the right here, this is some student work of the Jamboard that they did with their initial models. And after they've done their initial models, which we know are going to be really, really basic at the beginning, they take a screenshot and they would insert it into their notebook. They would talk about if they were in person and they were able to do this, they reflected on what they saw, and then they gave me the number of drops for each trial. If they were at home the day that we did this, they would click on this link right here, and it's me doing 3 trials of water. So they could still have, it's not exactly the same, but they could have the experience of seeing that experience of dropping the water on the penny and still being able to participate in that. So that's an example of putting in an explore aspect of the notebook. I need to move my Zoom thing around so I could see it. So this is an intermolecular forces investigation that I did as a demo. We didn't get to cover organic this year, which was like super sad because I love organic and it's actually leaving our curriculum, which is really going to make me even sadder. But what I did was in person, I dropped I think I have a video of this. What I did was we had 3 dropper bottles and, we put a drop on and then I circled it and the kids would time how long it took for the substance to evaporate, right? And so we were talking about what's going on here. And I gave them the 3 images. If it was a normal year, they would know how to draw hexane and propanone. And obviously they got water. Water's good. Hexane and propanone, they would have already learned how to draw. So if I was changing out this notebook, I would get rid of those images because I would ask them to revisit that. And then we were just comparing the rates of evaporation and discussing why that is. Why do you think that is? Why is hexane evaporating so much faster than acetone? To be like, oh, that's nail polish remover. I'm like, yep. And then water, I just gave them a time because I was like, we are not sitting around watching this paper towel. Yeah, it's just not going to happen. So That's an example of a teacher-led demo being incorporated into a notebook. Then we have like, you're thinking about your DCIs, right? Your disciplinary core ideas driving this phenomena. And again, our phenomena was this water on a penny. So you're in the explaining phase, I'd bring things into the notebook, like very condensed, focused sections of notes. My kids, I run a flipped classroom, which is one of the reasons why we could actually pull these notes off. So my notes are not embedded into my notebook. The notes are separate. I usually hand them out as a hard copy of a PDF, even though the kids get them, they can annotate them through Notability. All my notes are on Edpuzzle. I've been flipping my classroom since 2015, so a long time. But I might still take small sections of notes and put them in the notebook to really focus them. We definitely do just a ton of Pogles in class. I don't even want to talk about how I violated Pogles this last year. It was very sad, but we're going to get back to like true functioning of true Pogles. But I might ask them to like summarize Pogle or reflect on a Pogle, or, you know, doing an aspect in the notebook that just brings in the ideas of what was in the Pogle. We do have Sunflower for Science, which is an iPad app. I'll show you that in a minute. That's a paid thing. But then I'd also bring in things like PBS Learning Media, the ChemThink, which was just absolutely phenomenal for walking kids through different content. And I just loved that. Bringing Chem Matter articles or small YouTube videos, especially Fuse School and TED Ed. Those were big favorites. And then just finding resources on AACT that I could bring into the notebooks to push forward understanding the content in a more active way. So here's an explain portion, right? So this is modeling intermolecular forces. So the kids would read through this a little bit, and then it was a drag and drop activity where they would take these red dots down here and they would show me that they knew where to position these. Now, these are all static images, so the kids can't move these at all, but they can drag and drop the four red dots to show me that they understand, like quick little formative assessment piece, right? They could talk to each other in class. Why not? Spread the wealth. It's not a problem. But once they do that and they start making that connection, I would give them time to go back to and say like, hey, go back to your original Jamboard. What can you add to your original model now? How can you modify that a little bit based on what you've learned here? So that's an example of like a drag and drop. Another explain is, like I said, using Sunflower for Science. They have incredible simulations there. So I would take these questions here over in the yellow boxes that they give you, and I'd put them into the notebook. So the kids would run the simulation, but answer very specific questions about a topic. And this had to do with a little bit of chemical bonding. So I could incorporate those things into the notebook. The elaborate piece is where, again, you revise and revisit an initial model. So this might be engaging with an analogous phenomena to apply or extend or elaborate on something that they've learned. Extend understanding of your anchoring phenomena through scaffolded modeling. And this model that you see over on the right, this was going off of our matter and energy, and I'll show you that notebook in a second. Just saying, okay, let's take our initial model, but now we're going to scaffold it up a little bit. Like, what do we know now that we didn't know before that we can put into this specific model to extend what we already know? And then, or another thing could be completing a CR-based activity, again, outside the notebook, because those can get big, right? So maybe they take their whiteboard that they have at the end and they take a screenshot that their group did, and then they reflect on that at the bottom of the screen. I've also done embedded Flipgrids where the kids just tell me in a couple of sentences what they learned. So that link is embedded in the notebook, so we don't lose that stuff. So here's an example of an elaborate. So this was an analogous phenomena that we used with our penny and water situation. So here's water and space, right? So they watch this video that's coming from YouTube about the International Space Station, and we've got the water on the washcloth and why is it behaving the way it is. So the kids would watch that, but you would definitely need to make sure that you clip that video down and stop at 2 minutes and 35 seconds, because he totally kills the wonder. And I don't want him to kill the wonder. So I would have to say in my Google slide, hey, stop it right here, because yeah, I want the kids to think about what's happening and why it's behaving the way it is. So, you know, I give them a driving question. Now, in a perfect world, we would have developed a whole bunch of driving questions ahead of time on a driving question board. That'd be nice, but didn't happen this year. So they would click on this, they'd watch it, they'd give some feedback, they'd write questions, they would go to a Jamboard, they'd work with 3 other people. I would have on the Jamboard, I would have their names on slides already. So they'd find a slide with their name on it. They'd work with 3 other people. Now, could they just, instead of doing the Jamboard and writing on that, could they work on a piece of paper and upload a screenshot to that Jamboard of what they did on a piece of paper? Oh yeah, that's fine, because writing on Jamboard sometimes can be difficult. So there's things that I want to do with that more this year, but that's extending their understanding of that anchoring phenomena. Another one was a classify the element CER activity. This was a station rotation. This is a video here that my kids at home would have watched. But we also had this set up in class. So they'd go from station to station and they would be given an element and then have to make a claim and give me some evidence based on information that was either on the sheet or using these clickable links to tell them more about what they're looking at. I also was trying to, at the very beginning, this was at close to the beginning of school. So I was giving them information off to the side, especially with sentence starters, because that's huge, you know, because at this point they're learning how to do CERs. Couldn't really depend that they had learned at it prior to coming to my class. And then what's next? And then we have the evaluate, and the evaluate piece is like the biggest piece out there, right? So a lot of these were just former tasks that I would have done in class, probably still will do in class, that I had created, right? And they're on 8.5 pieces of paper. So it was really simple to take a screenshot of these and just insert them into the notebooks. And then the kids, my kids, because we're working on iPads and we can't write directly on our screens like you would with Chromebooks. If you have a touchscreen Chromebooks, which I know they're not all that way, but my kids, because they're chemistry students, could easily say, all right, Dr. English wants me to work on this sheet. They'd go to their Schoology folder, they'd grab the PDF, they'd fill it out in Notability, take a screenshot of it, put it in the notebook. But they could also watch a video if they needed help, especially if they were at home. And then I gave them the answer key. Now, could they copy right off? Sure, whatever. If I could look back at notebooks or just, you know, folders that my students had of so many sheets that we were supposed to do in class that they never did. Yeah, at least this tries to force them to do these little formative assessment tasks so I could see if they knew what they were doing. Because a lot of them, even though I gave them the answers, a lot of them wouldn't check their work. And then I'd go in comments and be like, I want to look at this again. But these are quick 1-slide assessment snapshots. They could be parts of station rotation activities, self-check slides, I do, we do, you do scenarios, final model creation. I'll show you that later. Choice boards. So many possibilities can be built into a notebook just to do quick snapshots and to keep it all organized. And that's one of the really big things. This is your best opportunity to see progress over time. And like I said, I mean, I had my students in class.
Okay, we're all set.
We're good.
Yeah, technology, yay.
Technology, yay. So I had my students, I had one set of students on Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday was for my remote kids, because I had a completely remote class that was interesting. I saw them on Wednesdays and Fridays. And then my other set of students came in Tuesdays and Thursdays. So a lot of the times, and really bringing into these notebooks, and really where I started before thinking like 5E and stuff like that, was just the idea of what can I do to support my students and how can they check their work, especially if they're not with me. Now, is there possibilities for cheating and just copying off the answer key? Sure, but you know what? They actually copied off the answer key, so maybe we got something there. So there's nothing's ever perfect, but for my kids who really embraced the notebooks and got into it, it was really helpful. They really liked it quite a bit. Another example of an evaluate, this was a station rotation where they went to different stations and looked at the looked at the graphs and they answered questions about that. And they could have worked together. They could have worked in a small group. They could have worked, I gave them chalk markers and whiteboards to work on if they wanted to use that. But again, there's directions over on the side that's very specific to the stations, and they were able to work on this at their own pace. Another thing that if you look at different notebooks that people sometimes do is just like super fast self-assessment tasks. So if we were doing temperature conversions, right, going from degrees Celsius to Kelvin, they would type in their answer and then they would click on this green box and delete it and they could check their work. Again, some people, I know some of the kids just deleted the green box right away and just put the answers in, but some of them actually, especially if I could watch them doing it in class, they did the work first, they clicked the green box, they deleted it, they checked their answers. And that was like a super really fast formative assessment piece that they could use in class and do by themselves. Here's another example of an evaluate piece where they had the final model, right? So we had this initial model of what kids put down on their papers when they were thinking about the water on the penny. So we brought in some ambitious science teaching aspects here with the got it, have it components of a final model. So I said, you know, these are the things that I really want you to think about when you're making your final model. Here's what I'm looking for. So make sure you focus on these. So they went back to their original Jamboard. They annotated their model. And again, we could totally do this on paper and poster boards again. And then there's a silent sustained writing, which is more of a Brett molding, like gather, research, communicate type of aspect. But I really didn't want them just to do the model. I also wanted them to write about the model. And so now you've got this notebook, and this is one of like the final, if I'm doing a 5E model notebook, this is like one of the final slides that we do, right? Because it's trying to capture all this understanding over time. And the kids can go back all the way through their notebooks where everything is to help them make that final model. And that kids really like that too, to be able to go back and reflect on stuff that they've done using those resources. Does every notebook need to be 5E? Absolutely not. I'm trying to do more of that because I'm trying to switch more over into storylines, but there's some topics that are just not 5E. So the way that I use these is, again, is just to capture student work over time. And you really have to think, what's the purpose of the notebook? Some notebooks are phenomena based and 5E, awesome. Some notebooks focus on modeling, group work, and practice. So your notebook is your notebook. So I wanted to show you two very different notebooks that I used in class last year. So I'm going to get out of this and I'm going to switch over to here. So hopefully you're looking, now your screen shows my chemistry formulas notebook. Okay. So if I just was to scroll through this, and hopefully I would say, you know what? Let's do something so zoomy. Can you give me a thumbs up if you can see the screen? Thumbs up. Thank you, Wendy. You're awesome. Thank you. So if you look at this is a notebook that just totally focuses on practicing, right? Kill and drill type of stuff. So this is something that I might model with my students in class. And then I like do two of them and they do the other two. And then they list to me the process that they did for assigning oxidation numbers. Sorry, and this of course is all in edit, right? Because you can't put these notebooks on display. So then they might go to, blue, gold team, going to a Jamboard and doing a bunch of practice and taking a screenshot of their individual practice. And then they can drag and drop and tell me how they feel. So this notebook really focused on just practice, like taking old worksheets. When we think about SAMR model, right? There's substitution, augmentation, modification, redefinition. Sometimes in notebooks, you're all about just the substitution, and that's okay because we're building understanding over time. It just takes time to learn this stuff. Some of this stuff is my original work. Some of the stuff I found off of like different things that people had shared. Like this isn't originally me. This came from some awesome individual that shared it with the Digital Interactive Notebooks group. It was this fantastic drag and drop. And my kids, after a while, we figured out how to do superscripts and subscripts on iPads, but we also use Symbol Salad, which was, oh my God, I love Symbol Salad as a website. If you don't know Symbol Salad, you totally should check it out. But there was just a whole bunch of stuff that in this particular notebook, they were just focused on writing ionic formulas and doing a whole bunch of practice. So it was a ton of practice all the time. So that's one type of notebook, right? But then we have a different notebook, which is my matter and energy notebook. And we started this one off with the phenomena, and it was fantastic. It was called the triple dog dare phenomena. And so, you know, we've got, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on his name. Okay. We got the kid who's like egging the other kid to stick his tongue to the pole. And so for my kids were in class, I showed them the video clip. For my kids were at home, they can click on this image and it should come up with a link where they could go and watch the video clip of, you know, the kid sticking and why. And we're asking questions like, why can't the kid who's so much warmer than the pole, you know, why can't he get his tongue off? So then they would do a little bit of reading and they learned about saliva and flag folds. Fun fact, where that shot was done was near us. It was in St. Catharines, Ontario. So I showed them a little map of us traveling from Sweet Home over to St. Catharines. But this is a notebook that focuses on using that initial model and then bringing up with a final model at the end. This is where I brought in the PBS learning media, which went over particulate nature of matter. So that got to embed that in. So did they go to a separate website for that and watch that and then go back and fill out parts of their notebook? Yeah. There was drag and drop where they did a ton of stuff with building, like using dots to show particle diagrams. There was a drag and drop that I created that looked at these vials right here are movable. So we could drag and drop the difference between a pure substance and a mixture. There's just tons of stuff that you can do with the notebook. So you can incorporate those card sorts and you can capture students' understanding. There's just a lot of stuff that you can do with the notebooks. Pretty much if you think you can do it, most likely you can. Or somebody else has done it and you just need to learn how to convert it into a notebook. So that was two different types of notebooks. So my brother and I have made 12 notebooks now. So challenges, it takes time to set up what we call the parent notebook. Like once you've got your parent notebook, then it's not that bad because you're thinking about how you're organizing stuff over the time. You have to think about your notebook length and your bandwidth issue. We have screaming Wi-Fi at my school. So uploading Google Docs, once they've got their notebook, the Google Slides uploaded into their iPads, they can always get to it. It's just there. Students can, in my notebooks, because I don't use Slip and Slide, they can definitely jump ahead, even though I'll be monitoring that more this year because hopefully they'll all be there. They can fall behind, which again, it's going to monitor this year. Providing feedback can be time consuming because you're opening up these Google Slides, but it was great when I could, because I could really comment on kids' stuff. There was a little bit of a learning curve with teaching them how to use the notebooks, but they were chemistry students, so it really didn't take that long. And transforming your content from like just substitution to something that's more interactive can be challenging, but once you've got it, it's amazing what you can do. Most students really, really liked them. They're like, Dr. English, it's all in one spot. I know where everything is. I had a problem, I can go back and review something. Notebooks can last for weeks. And now given my timeline was off and it was very strange this year because, we were COVID, but, I could make a 3-week notebook and it was brilliant. I really loved being able to see how kids progressed over time. This is not, notebooks are formative assessment pieces. These are not summative assessments. I was still giving like a test, even though we won't talk about how I gave tests this year. That was sad. A lot of incorporating of 3-dimensional learning. So if your school is embracing NGSS or whatever your state has adapted, you can really bring it into the notebooks. And the big thing is that it holds them accountable for their work. Like they can't just get away anymore with just not doing it, because I like punch through the notebooks really, really fast, scan through it. Now, can they copy off their friends? Of course they can copy off their friends. They can copy off their friends at any time. They can sit outside in the hallway and copy off each other. But it was just one way of just trying to capture their understanding. Okay, so I'm going to take questions or comments. I am in the process of, I just created a new YouTube channel called Creating Chemistry Digital Interactive Notebooks. I don't sell anything. I don't say, hey, use my templates, because everybody wants to change their stuff to make it for what they're doing. So yeah, plus all my stuff is so crazily violation of copyright. We won't talk about that. But if you did look that up, you would you find like one video that would be like the starting point. I'm hopefully adding, well, I will be adding in more videos because I like making these notebooks and I want to share with people how I make these notebooks without charging them any money, because that's just dumb. Oh, work in progress. And then, so let's see, how much time we have? Oh, 15. I think I have 15, or maybe I'm done. Who knows? I don't even know when I'm
No,
done.
you have 15 minutes. We
Yay.
continue at 12 with lunch.
Oh,
Lunch
that's
break.
lovely.
All right.
So there's my email, and I am on Twitter. I'm not a crazy Twitterer, but sometimes I'm on Twitter. I do have a YouTube channel, so that's there. And I have flipped my entire region's chemistry curriculum, which is wonderful. So I never have to lecture about certain topics again. A lot of teachers in New York State, and I was very proud of this, but it's sort of obnoxious, but a lot of teachers in New York State last year used my videos and my notes because I just shared them out because why not? You know, I had it done. I had it done before the pandemic. So that was really awesome, being able to share my videos out on YouTube and Edpuzzle along with the notes to help people, because nobody, flipping is a very personal thing and it's not for everybody. But when you're in a time crunch, it can be really helpful. But again, your students don't want to see me, but they want to see you. But if they did need to know somebody else, I'm sort of fun and entertaining at times. And then there's the bit.ly for the one video, on my YouTube channel that's in progress. So I threw a lot of stuff at you guys, and but the big thing is that, like, I have had people build notebooks in Google Slides, publish them to PDFs, push those out to their students on iPads, and just mark them up in Notability. That's a possibility. There's just so many different ways that you can create notebooks, but it's a very personal process, and it does take a bit of time to like sort of figure out how you're going to do it. But I know I can push them out successfully on Schoology. And my brother, it was great. It was amazing. I was like, wow, we are the poster children for advocating this, that this can be done, because we'd have the exact same notebooks. He changed the slides up to be like, go to Google Classroom, and change his directions up. But it was good because we could really reflect on the process together, and look at that. So now I'm going to look at all of how much time did it take you to create these notebooks? So my first notebook was on atomic structure, and the phenomena that I used was a sparkler, and it was great. And we had done this in a physical notebook ahead of time, because I could, and I did this before in my school, because I figured, well, I'll ask, beg forgiveness later, but I lit a sparkler in my fume hood, with the fume hood on, of course. And the kids were like, ooh, and it was like gold and stuff. So I took a video of that so that my kids at home who didn't see the sparkler could watch the video, but my kids were in class, got to see the gold sparkler. So that was like the atomic structure 1 notebook. And then I had an atomic structure 2 notebook where I burned like a red sparkler and a green sparkler. And then they're like, whoa, why did it change color? And I'd be like, why did it change color? And they're like, no, really, why change color? I was like, no, why we gotta explore this. And that whole understanding was captured in their notebooks, which was super awesome. So how much did it time? So for that first notebook, I'd say it took like a week to create the first notebook, because I didn't know what I was doing. And I'd watch Jessica Wilding's building. I was like, oh my God, now I understand how to do that. In the end, my brother and I could create like a 50 Google slide notebook in a weekend, but they were like, seriously, my husband was like, mommy's over there. mommy can't talk right now for the next 18 hours. But once we did have those notebooks done and we were really happy with them, like we had them for like 2 or 3 weeks and it was incredible. So, and now I have all these notebooks ready to go for next year. Amazing. Do you have suggestions on first steps? Yeah. I can walk you through the very first step of choosing what, like, do you want portrait or landscape? That's on my channel. But other than that, I'd go to Jessica Wilding. She's got a 40-minute video that gives you all the basics. Like, I love her. You know, she's cool like that. Would you share these notebooks with a good group? Yeah, sure. Absolutely. And the thing to remember with these notebooks, because I can totally, that's totally not a problem, is that I do work in something called Theme Builder. So when I build my notebooks, the student view for the most part is they can't change anything. So if you're going to use one of my notebooks, still might want to watch Jessica Wilding and be like, okay, why can't I touch anything on the screen except for like a text box or something that the kids are manipulating? Like, why, where, what if I want to change something else? Because I don't care what you do with my notebooks. Rip them apart, make them new, change them all up. It's all good. Could you put the links in the chat? Oh, the links to what?
The bit.ly ones you had up.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll do that. Awesome, inspiring. Oh, nice. Lucky. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was really lucky to have my brother. Now, who are we kidding? I'm the older sibling. I made the notebooks. My brother tested them out, gave critical feedback. He really works with the population with a lot of ELLs and a lot of students with special needs. So he'd be like, the phrasing on this is terrible. Like, what are you thinking? And I was like, it took me like an hour to create this slide and you're going to insult me, but that's okay. It's okay. That's what younger brothers do. So he was a lot of like the wordsmithing on stuff for developing the notebooks. But like once we had something, then it was great. And some people will say, well, you know what? I think you should just take screenshots of the slides that you make and just put those in. I could, but then I was constantly finding mistakes. Even though we had both looked at these notebooks, I was finding mistakes in the notebooks and I wanted to go back and change my master like right away. Or make a note to myself and be like, wow, this activity really sucked. Or what were you thinking putting an entire in your notebook? That was dumb. Pull it out next year. That's a standalone thing. Like there was a lot of learning that we had in here. Thank you. How many students do you have? 24. I'm doing 24 kids in a class. I usually fight for 24. They might put up to 27 in my class, but then I usually throw a fit because I don't have room for 27 kids in my lab area. So then I have a slight fit about that. Any advice on what not to do? I think that's really hard because everybody's situation is different. And then I think you need to like, I'll definitely share a bunch of my notebooks. That's absolutely fine. But then I think you need to look at like, if you go into the Facebook groups where people are sharing your notebooks, you can really get inspired by what other people are doing. Like some people like totally put their notes in the notebook. But then I'm like, that takes a lot of time that takes like a lot of slides. I usually have my notes separate. Oh, somebody put my bit.lys in. Thank you very much. Like I said, the channel with the channel for the notebooking one is really sad. I was going to try to push out a video last night and then I got tired.
Wait a minute.
Oh. Do one of the bit.lys
One of
not
them
work?
is bad. Yeah, I just noticed that.
Okay. Well, if you just look up like,
Is that the one without the S after HTTP? Maybe.
I don't know. Oh, hang on for a second. Let me see.
I thought I clicked on them to
Um,
make sure it was working.
Yeah,
I'm-
the first one is not right.
I think the B is supposed to be a 6 on the first one. There should be 1 6.
It is a 6, 6A. All right, where'd you all go? Okay.
Sorry about that.
So much like completely like deer in headlights on that. I was like, how am I gonna get those up there?
Yeah, I
Um,
clicked on that first one and it took me like to a porn site.
Awesome. Fantastic. Porn. Awesome. Hope we're still recording. How do you grade? So because this is formative assessment, right? So what I'll do is I'll open up the notebooks in Google Slides. So then it's really nice because you can see like kids who have started it all, kids who are in progress, kids who have submitted. And basically what I'm doing is like I'm scanning the notebooks pretty quick. Like I'm going through and I'd say like each slide is worth 2 or 3 points. I'm keeping it super simple because the kids can totally copy from each other. But the kids who have put the work in, you know, so I want to make the notebooks worth a grade, but at the same time, I realize that there's a lot of room for kids to like not do the work on their own. I can easily go into every slide and give a comment. A lot of times I would have canned comments, like put off in a Word document. So if I was saying the exact same thing over and over and over, and I wanted kids to like fix something, put in the comment, they'd get an email, unsubmit it, like bring it back out and be like, you need to fix this. So I tried to keep grading really, really simple. I definitely counted the initial models and the final models. If it was like a 5E thing, I gave those more points. So I hope that helped. Can you give some reference to what your flipped classroom connects to the digital notebook? So a lot of times I try to do the content before the notes. So the kids would be doing an activity in the digital notebook. And then I use a website called Common Curriculum, which is amazing. And it gives like the kids can see how my class is organized. So they'll be like, do slide 1, do slide 2 tonight, watch this ed puzzle. And then they have the notes that goes along with it. So the video notes were done technically outside of our official class time. And that would support the learning that they had for that day. So I hope that gives some example. Yeah, Symbol Salad is on Pinterest. I could not have lived without Symbol Salad. Like I finally learned on my computer how to do like some of the option H or option J or option K and get like degree symbols and stuff like that, which was like killer. Like, where's that been on my entire life? But Symbol Salad did an amazing thing for like arrows and Greek letters and stuff like that I could do in Word, but in Google Slides, it wasn't as easy. So Symbol Salad, I bought that man a coffee. You bet I bought him a coffee. Do not use first. It still didn't. Okay.
I don't know if
Let's
the
see.
links get captured with the when you make a recording of the presentation. So I didn't want anyone else going there.
So let me just see if I can, and I appreciate everybody's here. I know it's lunchtime and there's only like 3 minutes left. I'm trying to pull up the YouTube channel. Maybe it'll pop up and I can at least show you what to look for, you know, if it loads. But I know I've talked a lot. So anybody else have any questions about it? Yeah.
Sarah, have you,
How many students total do you have?
Oh, out of all my classes, let's see, this year, probably about 100. Probably
Wow.
about 100 students. Because this year, because they decided to overbook me, I'll have 3 Regions classes and 1 AP class. Yeah.
And you're doing these notebooks in all 4 classes?
Oh, not AP. No, definitely not AP. But for Regents, yeah. So, but the thing is, like, once I push them out and the kids start, and a lot of the slides are like self-assess, you know, I can jump in on any of these slides at any time. Like I can go to that and yeah. So this is the channel. So if you look up creating chemistry digital interactive notebooks, I think that's the one that was a problem. I think.
no, it
Or
was
maybe
your,
it was.
it was the one where you did your flipped lessons.
Got you. Hang on. Let's go. Nope, I want to be here. Nope. Sorry. Let's go here and let's go over here. And let's just go to YouTube. Because this one's on. I have 2 different channels now. if you just type in Sarah English Chemistry, my channel comes up. That's probably like the easiest way to do this because this is going to take forever to load because we're zooming. And I have 1 minute left. If this is filled with like Mr. Beast and stuff, that's because my kids, Trey Kennedy. Anybody else? Trey Kennedy? He's my I love watching. Trey
Don't worry,
Kennedy.
Sarah, this is not run by a
Safe space.
automatic, whatever.
Safe space.
Don't worry. I'm not,
Yeah. So,
they're still being recorded and.
yay.
you-
So this is my channel. This is my chemistry channel.
Hi, my name is Dr.
No.
Sarah English.
No.
And welcome to my YouTube channel.
Yeah,
I
no.
teach
Pause.
chemistry
Ah,
in
pause. Okay. Yeah, that's nice. My hair was so short. But yeah, so this is my channel. And then you can go into playlist. And what I've been like, one of the many projects of this summer has been, going through and attaching my notes as PDFs to these videos because some people like them. Yeah. So just if you look up, just type in Sarah English Chemistry and I'll be there. That's me if you want to check it out. You know what my best video is on there? It's the worst one ever. It's photoelectron spectroscopy. It's 24 minutes of hell. And I've got like 40,000 views. And I'm like, oh my God, what is wrong? The kids are like, this is the best. And I'm like, what's wrong with you? It's awful. It violates everything about flipped classroom. Like it shouldn't be more than 10 minutes. Lies. 21 to 24 minutes of hell. They're like, oh my God, I finally understand. I was like, my God, you watched the whole thing? Who does that? Anyway.
Well, thank you so much,
Sarah-
Sarah. I'm gonna stop. I'm
Sarah,
gonna
you
stop
have,
recording now.
Sarah, you
So,
have another career in comedy.